Manx Radio's Countryside is brought to you by NFU Mutual.
Hello and welcome to the new series of Countryside here on Manx Radio. I'm Simon Clark.
And I'm Kirree. Well, after a very quiet summer here at Manx Radio, we caught up with the Manx National Farmers Union President Ean Parsons to see how the year has been.
And I look back at one of the sheepdog trials that was held on the Isle of Man a month or so back and spoke to one of the competitors and a judge who was operating on the day. But firstly, Kirree, welcome back to the new series of Countryside. It's been a few weeks off and quite a bit of things have been happening on the farms, mainly worry, I'd imagine.
Absolutely. The input costs are still skyrocketing and farmers, well, they're just carrying on as usual.
Yeah, it's the odd thing, you know, when people are in different businesses and they think, oh, they've got a shop or something. They go, oh, we're not making much money here. It's not worth it. Sell up and move on to something else. Not quite so easy in the farming industry, is it?
That's right. They are pretty resilient characters and they will try and get through. They'll take the rough with the smooth. But it has been quite some year, really, with everything that's going on in the world and the input costs, especially of fertiliser to make the grass grow and feed livestock. But that said, catching up with Ean Parsons, ever the optimist, but a very busy time of year for him right now. And I thought I'd see what his point of view was on farming. Well, Ian, it's been a busy summer. It was nice to see you at the shows. But how has the year been generally?
Well, I suppose it's been a varied year. We've gone from dry early on. Early part of the summer was really dry, which had a knock-on effect on crops and grass growth, to now it seems a million miles away when it's very wet and doesn't seem to have stopped raining for a long time.
But that said, the countryside does look green and lush. You know, this maybe will be shortening the winter.
Yeah, hopefully, and it's amazing. Grass is still growing. It's certainly getting a bit wet underfoot and time for cattle to be off grass and housed and moved away, so that we're into the winter routine. But yeah, grass is still growing, and that will give a bit of a shorter winter for sheep especially, and a bite to eat.
And how have the production numbers been this year? Sort of cattle and sheep, they were calving in the springtime. Have numbers been good? Yeah,
with us at home, that side of it's been pretty good. We just weaned the calves yesterday. Calves have come off good weights. Really pleased with how they've come off. Lambs probably haven't done quite as well here. Seems to be the message in quite a lot of places. The dryness and certainly when it comes to finishing lambs, there's a lot less green crop about because the dry spell got the green crop, so it was later in. And also, you know, the huge price of fertilisers had an impact on growing forage crops as well. So yeah, it's been a mixed year, very, very mixed.
And you say about the input costs, Ian, how do farmers handle that? Obviously, you know, the sheep and cattle are on their farms already, what they normally put out and spread on the land. How will they sort of expect to pay for those big bills?
I'm really not sure, to be fair. I think it's the biggest challenge at the moment, as well as access to markets. I know myself, this time last year, when fertiliser really started to rocket, we were placing orders for fertiliser and we decided we'd pretty much carry on the same and be a little bit more careful with it, but certainly for silage and for cropping, we would order the same amount of fertiliser. I was hoping it was a blip and that would be maybe not back to where we were 3 or 4 years ago, but certainly prices would be reduced again now, whereas they're not. If anything, they're probably higher than they were this time last year. So there's going to be an awful lot of thought and consideration have to be on farm businesses as whether they do carry on the same. I know myself, we've probably cost us about an extra £42,000 this year in fertiliser for the same quantity. And yeah, we've swallowed that for 1 year, but can't continue doing that. So there is going to have to be a change in practices on farm.
And with that said, Ian, selling beef and lamb off the farm, has that price creeped up a bit?
It was looking quite positive in the springtime. It did sort of creep up. Beef price started to, from about March last year, was sort of tickling away nicely, but it's very much plateaued. And obviously lambs have taken quite a big hit lately. So that really is the sort of worry, I think, from the beef and sheep sector, because the market price hasn't grown with it. Dairy side has lifted a little bit, but I'm sure it's still very tight margins on dairy farms, has lifted a little bit. And certainly the cereal sector in the UK, probably in relative terms, fertiliser's cheaper than it was because the price of grain has risen sort of nicely, really nicely, but obviously that doesn't help the cereal sector in the Isle of Man because the cost of accessing that market is so expensive.
Yeah, that is the trouble, and you do hear an awful lot about saying you export beef and lamb, but everything has risen.
Yeah, export costs are expensive, import costs are expensive, and it's that market return is going to have to grow.
So with that said, Ian, with your Manx National Farmers Union hat on, how has it been? Because obviously you're the voice for most of the farming community. Are you feeling some frustrations coming your way?
I think it's fair to say this last 3 months I've never known the sort of frustrations in the industry that's filtering through to the office and to all of us really involved in the NFU. It's probably the most challenging time Manx agriculture's seen since the 30s.
Yeah. And what is it mostly? Is it the rise of input costs?
The rise of input costs, lack of clarity of direction and access to market, they're the real hitters on the industry at the moment. We've seen a 300% rise in fertiliser costs. That's had a massive effect on farm. And also, the difficulty in releasing cash in a business to pay these bills. There's obviously difficulties of getting stock into the meat plant. We've seen the mill disappear. It's back to those difficulties of farming on an island with sort of single processors. Fortunate with the creamery that the marketing their produce really well. But also, the dairy farmers have got challenges on rising input costs as well, but at least there has been a little bit of a lift in their market price. So, I'm not really sure at the moment on direction. Obviously, we've got the new agricultural strategy coming up. We'll be meeting with the consultants in the next couple of weeks, so that's why it's essential that members feed in their views. We're taking it around the branch meetings. We've had really good feedback so far in the 2 branch meetings we've had so far at North and Central. So they're the views we'll take forward, feeding into the new agricultural strategy.
Because as we've heard on the radio, Tim Johnson did raise the concerns that the farmers weren't getting heard. Yeah,
there's been difficulty with certain parts of government, especially the climate change team. That's been really challenging. As I said in the address I gave at the AGM after my first year of the union, it's been interesting learning about different parts of our own sector that wasn't our own industry, different sectors that I wasn't really aware of. But I think the most interesting one is working out how government works or at times doesn't work. So it's just getting our message across there. We do have fairly good dialogue with DEFA, and we do have fairly regular meetings, and we have sort of agreed that it needs to be more regular just over this period with the ag strategy and also just the challenges that farms are facing. But there is big restrictions in the Isle of Man with access to market, and also we don't even have the diversification of green energy on farm. There's lots of farms across have either wind power as an alternative income or AD plants to feed. So this all needs to be part of the new strategy going forward.
Yeah, so you're basically saying some of the farms might have to look at diversification to sort of get through, because there doesn't seem to be light at the end of the tunnel at the minute.
No, it's just farmers want to produce, but if you haven't got a market there that you can supply, it makes it very difficult. And as I say, the cost of crossing that water to supply a market takes away any profit really that there is in the job. And also it's essential that we manage to retain as much of the product on the Isle of Man, because whether we say food security, though it disappoints me at times to hear government say food security is the boat, because that was mentioned lately when they purchased the Arrow. But I think it's to be sort of self-sustainable a little bit on the Isle of Man. We need to be producing our own food.
Yeah. So you say food security. We do hear this a lot, but what does that actually mean?
Well, I think obviously, as a farming industry, we're never going to be able to produce everything the consumer needs. So it's more about being self-sufficient in those products that we can supply and import substitution. The whole way of shopping has changed. We've got into a situation where everybody thinks everything is available all year round. So we need to look a little bit more sort of seasonal produce and supply what we can. But I don't want to be scaremongering, but I don't believe going forward that food will always be there to come in on the boat. We really are going into a situation where the vast parts of Europe now are drying out, and they can't. The olive harvest in Spain has been the worst on record due to droughts. Wheat crops in Australia have been flooded in some places, and other places have been drought. And also we've got the likes of the Ukraine situation still going on. So the availability of food just could be restricted a lot going forward.
This is it. There's a lot going on globally, and obviously the climate it seems to be changing. The season seems to be changing with that. But also here, Ian, young people coming into agriculture. Now, you can see so much unrest with the older generations within farming. That doesn't give much encouragement to the young ones.
No, it doesn't. But we've got to have a profitable, viable industry there for the young ones to enter into. So I think that's the key thing to start off with. And then going forward, we've got to look in, as part of the new ag strategy, of a way of incentivising and encouraging young farmers, and there might be schemes that can assist in older farmers that are probably struggling because labour is a real shortage in the Isle of Man. So there might be schemes of where it'll enable a younger member of the industry to sort of maybe get involved in that farming business and alleviate some of the labour heartache on the older generation and maybe buy into that business.
And that's it. Succession planning in farming is something that doesn't really get spoken about. It's just passed down the generations, but we're getting to a point now where young people are going to the bright lights.
Yeah, there's a lot easier ways to make a living than there is in farming. Like, we all love it, and it's a fantastic environment to work in. But at the end of the day, you've got to be able to bring up a family and feed a family, and the return from agriculture is, it's a lot lower than what people can earn in the finance sector or even working on building sites.
And that's it, that regular income, isn't it? As like you say now, you've put cattle in the buildings to feed them on corn that you've grown, not knowing what your end price is going to be for that beef.
Yeah, I always think it's a very, very unique industry, ours. We're totally dictated to our input costs, whether it be fertiliser, fuel and everything like that. And then where lots of other businesses can put a margin on their selling price or what they charge themselves out as an industry, we get told what we're going to receive for our beef, our lamb, our milk, our grain. So it's a real challenge to try and make a margin with that bit in the middle.
There seems to be an awful lot of support locally. People are using a lot more social media these days, and you see people wanting to support local, they're getting behind it. Do you think the general public are coming on board?
I do think there's a good support by the local community over here, but the challenge is to have the product out there as well, isn't it? The supermarkets have got to buy into that as well. If the product's not got placement on the shelf, the consumer can't buy it, can they? So it's got to be joined up all the way through.
So how do you see the future, Ian? Obviously with your Manx National Farmers Union hat on finally.
Very worrying in the next 2 years. I really do. We're not seeing any reduction in fertiliser prices at all. Fuel's sort of levelled off a little bit, but not massively. And as I say, certainly in the red meat sector, the market price hasn't gone up that significant amount. I do believe that food has to get more expensive, but I don't believe it has to absolutely skyrocket, because I don't think the primary producer gets a big enough margin of what the consumer pays. Yeah. There's so many products out there that we see on the shelves in shops where the primary producer is probably only getting about 10 or 15% of what the consumer pays.
And with that said, Ian, obviously we've got the Christmas Prime Stock Show coming up. There's lots of things still happening in the calendar. Yeah,
mad busy. Never sort of quietens down. And from the union's point of view, we're really busy as well. Seems to be more meetings than ever at the moment. So it's just trying to fit that in while feeding cows and bedding sheds and just getting the day-to-day work done as well.
There we go. That was Ean Parsons from the Manx National Farmers Union talking about the year and farming in general.
Yes, and he puts a lot of work in, not just at home, but for the National Farmers Union as well, Ian, doesn't he?
More so this year than ever. There's an awful lot of liaising with DEFRA at the moment, trying to get the agricultural strategy formed there, as you can hear. And he is gathering views from the farmer community, and he really is urging all of the farmers to come forward with their views so this document can be compiled and put forward. It's a really, really important time for agriculture. As he says, we've got to stand up and be counted now.
Yeah, and there was a couple of farmers I bumped into over the last week or so, and saying that we'd really like to award ourselves a 6 or 7% pay rise as well, but not quite so easy in that role.
Absolutely not. And like Ian says, it's the only industry where you get given a price at the end for what you raise, what you produce, and you can't make much difference with that. And in light of what's going on around the world, it is quite worrying times for agriculture.
You're listening to Countryside here on Manx Radio with Kirree Kermode and myself, Simon Clark. Well, a few weeks ago now, I was at Bishop's Court Farm, courtesy of the Crow family, to witness the Manannan sheepdog trials. I spoke to the judge on the day, Norman Christian, but firstly I caught up with one of the regulars from off-island, Frank Setherwaite. And I put it to him that he's quite a regular here now. Now, you're here on the Isle of Man, well, not your first time, is it?
No, coming for years.
Yeah?
When the trialling was at Portashee, down at the rugby club, I used to come there with years. I've come for years.
Right. And what's attracting you to the Isle of Man? Obviously, do you go around everywhere to all of the trials?
I used to do a lot when I was a bit younger, but I don't do as much now. I'm not as keen as I used to be, but. It's nice people on the Isle of Man. You can come talk to anybody, they'll all go and talk to you. Well, everybody good. It's good.
But you've obviously been quite experienced in the sheepdog trials, and you got your own sheep back home?
No, I was a builder.
Right.
I was a builder for about 40 years, and I bought a field just maybe 10 years ago, and I've got 5 sheep where I train my dogs, and I just play about spare time of night. I'm retired now. And just a nice hobby.
That's a really interesting story, because most of the ones doing the sheepdog trials have come from the farmer background.
Yeah, well, my father was a farmer. That was a long time ago. But I was building. Yeah. Good. It's good.
And what was the attraction that first thought, wow, did you watch sort of One Man and His Dog and all the programs?
Well, yes, they used to be all on with them, but it's marvellous what you can teach a dog. They're just a dumb animal, but they're marvellous what you can teach them. Like even the sniffer dogs on the telly, on the conveyor belts, the drug dogs. It's fantastic, really. It's fantastic what you can do. And these dogs, these sheep dogs, they're just the same to the point. On their own ground, they're marvellous what you can teach them. They learn the whistles and the words, and they never hardly miss and they never forget them. No.
And you said that you sort of started and bought this little field, got the sheep. Do you train the dogs from pups?
Yes.
Yeah. That must be a marvellous satisfaction to see them working.
Just when they start to work the sheep, and they start stopping chewing them, a lot of them will chew the sheep, you see, a little. And when they start stopping doing that, and they just start to give more room on the sheep themselves, it's marvellous. You can go on and it's marvellous what you can teach them.
Special bond, is it?
Yes, I think so. Yeah. Just quiet, keep quiet, and don't get cross. If you're getting cross, if something's not going right, you just give them a pat and put them away.
Yeah.
Come again the next day. It's marvellous. It is marvellous.
Yeah. And is it always the border collies that you've ran?
Yes, that's all I've had.
Will the same owner and the same dog go round for 3 months and win every competition?
No, it doesn't work like that.
No.
The sheep are a bit unpredictable, and sometimes, like today, there's been some good lads on today, but something would maybe go wrong at the pen, or just little hiccup, and then it just goes pear-shaped, and it's right. Yeah. Like Andy, he's a farrier. He's a farrier, and on the horses, and he does it as well.
I don't know how to do it.
Yes, he does.
Yes,
he does.
No, but it's just great to come here. It doesn't matter about the conditions either. Do dogs just equally as good in the rain?
Yes. No bothers. They have to run all conditions. When such as rich as here, he'll work on the hills. And if it's a wet day, they still have to work, and they don't mind. As long as they're working sheep, they love it. They love it.
So how many dogs have you got?
I just have 2 at the present. 2 years ago, I had 4 bitches stolen out of my sheds, and I got 1 back. But that's all, So I've rather shut down a little bit with the dogs. I keep them at home in my garage under the house, and it's not ideal, but it's where they're staying. That's it.
Brilliant. Yeah. Well, great to talk to you today.
Yeah, thank you very much anyway. Thank you.
Norman Christian, judging today. Big task ahead.
Big task ahead. We've had 2 days of it to the top 8 and now going through into a final. There's been some very good runs, high quality runs, like job to knock any points off them.
Really?
So, yeah.
And the course, more or less the same as it would be everywhere?
Well, yesterday's course was in a different field, so they've took the top 4 from that field and the top 4 from today's field to go into the final. So that gives us our 8, like, so the courses are very good.
Would it be an advantage in sheepdog trialling for the dogs and the handlers who have been in this field, or not much different really?
I wouldn't think it'd make a lot of difference. Like, no, much fields are much the same. Field's a field, isn't it? And how it's set out, it's the same for every competitor. So yeah, it's nice to see so many come over from across and make a trial for us, because the local trials have sort of declined in the last few years. So it's nice to see a bit of a comeback of it again, and there's a few youngsters getting involved. So
always nice, isn't it?
Yeah, very nice. Good to see it.
But when you look at the obviously they start with a certain mark for the outrun, the fetches, and the pen and stuff. I mean, where are most lose the marks in this, or where's it impressed you?
It can be different in different trials. This one, everybody has had a good run out on the field with their outrun, lift, fetch, and drive. But there's been a lot of problems at the pen. They've been very, very hard to pen them. So that's where the problem's been this time. But the next trial, it could be somewhere different on the field. Like, so, yeah. But
so you well renowned in the judging world?
We competed for a lot of years, here and across a lot, like in internationals and what have you. But been judging for the last few years. So getting into the swing of it, I suppose, really.
And I suppose in this, you mentioned the unpredictability, the sheep, the dog on the day. There's always something different to see.
Always something different, I suppose, yeah. And an odd competitor is unlucky enough to get one awkward sheep, which spoils
they are
the
Manx.
whole thing for them, being Manx. We haven't tackled the Lochtons yet, but that could be a different kettle of fish. Yeah.
But I'd imagine even doing the trials yourself and judging, it's took you some nice places.
Oh yes, and met some very nice people, made good friends and what have you, like, and yeah. Used to go to Ireland quite a lot, you know, for the different trials and what have you, and got to know quite a few of the Irish guys. Because the Isle of Man is linked in with Ireland for the national trials, represent Ireland rather than the Isle of Man, so yeah, it's been good. Enjoyed the years of it, really. So.
Well, it shows the friends you've made by the amount of people from off Ireland who've come over to compete this weekend.
Oh yeah, yeah. Richard has had a big hand in that. Like, he's got to know quite a few of them competitors across and got things organised to come over here and compete. So
you need a dog with these hills and fields, though.
Oh yes, yes.
Well, we'll let you crack on. The finals are about to start. Thanks for talking to us.
Thanks very much. Yeah.
The judge at the Manannan Sheepdog Trials, Norman Christian, and before that, one of the regulars with his 5 sheep at home, Frank Sethwaite. A wonderful story and a great character.
He really is a great character, and to think that this is just a hobby but enjoys coming to the island so much, and he's very good at this hobby though, isn't he?
Yes, but the camaraderie that was there, and all watching each other's rounds as well, because it's fairly chilly up on these places where they have the sheepdog trials at times, isn't it? And all their supporting and watching each other and giving advice, because some of them are trialling new dogs.
There really is great competition on the island again now for sheepdog trialling, and it is good to see because it died off quite rapidly there for a while, and many young people getting involved. But the dog is so important for farm life, for agriculture. But not only that, they can make a business out of it. Many farmers can't train a dog themselves, so they will go to these marts and auctions and pick up a nicely trained dog, and there'll be young pups there having the opportunity to run out. And like Frank says, it really is very addictive, and you get an awful lot of reward back from the dogs.
That is indeed. Okay, if you have anything that you'd like featured on Countryside, leave a message for Kirree Kermode or myself here at Manx Radio, and you can always send an email to countryside@manxradio.com. Don't forget the podcast if you want to listen to the programme in full on Manx Radio's website. It'll be under the podcast in Countryside, and we'll be back next Tuesday at 6 o'clock with more. So until then, from me, Simon Clark.
And me, Kirree Kermode.
We'll see you next week. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.